Ever wondered about the ancient practices hidden from the world? Spiritual practices that are hidden in plain sight, or the meaning behind rituals that you do? What if I told you there is an ancient practice, deeply ingrained in Indian culture, deeply rooted with our own belief systems, practices which have claimed since thousands of years to connect humans to the very essence of nature, spirits, or even altered states of consciousness? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I will take you on a surreal, fascinating journey into the world of shamanism in India. Let me clear things for you first. This is not a belief system. It is a living, vibrant tradition or sets of traditions which has shaped many cultures. It has its role in influencing religions. We will explore its ancient history, its surprising ties to psychedelics, its roots to mythology, and how it is now influencing the modern world around us. A shaman is a spiritual leader. A shaman is a spiritual leader within a community whose main role is to serve as an intermediate between the three realms, the upper world, the middle world, and the underworld, using ritual tools and assistance of spirit aliens. And to understand this, we need to go back. We need to go way back, even before recorded history. There are several anthropological evidences which tells us that shamanic practices in India dates back to the Palaeolithic era, which is roughly around 11,700 years. And ancient cave art from the Palaeolithic era has hinted towards the shamanic practices. It is not just a theory, it is an indigenous root which predates even the Vedic traditions or other religious traditions which came after. Today's world, many scholars and researchers has proposed that the Shramana traditions, which are basically ancient ascetic, sadhu, renunciation based movements, which are said to have contributed towards the rise of Jainism and Buddhism, actually has its roots to the pre-Vedic period in India. These early ascetics or sadhus, they lived in deep solitude and strict self-control, much like ancient shamans in training. Their hardships were meant to break the old self and awaken a new, wiser one. And now let's see one of the most earliest recorded evidence, the RigVeda, which dates back to around 1500 BCE, and it contains a very special hymn known as the Kesin hymn. The hymn itself speaks of long-haired men known as Munis. They are described as wanderers without a home, whose only home was the open sky. The hymn says that they roamed the land in worn-out, dusty clothes, existing as much in the spirit realm as the human one. They walked with the winds, had befriended wild animals. They were very close to God and were in tune with the rhythm of nature itself. But here's where things get really interesting. The hymn tells us that Kesin, or the Munis, they drank from a very special magic cup with Rudra. It is known as a substance which gives us a state of ecstasy and an astral soul flight. But this name is also related to Shiva as an avatar of him. And what is interesting is that this so-called poison was later interpreted by some scholars and researchers as a psychoactive substance, a form of psychedelic, directly linking Indian shamanism and its ritual to the use of psychoactive substances. And it is so hard not to be amazed by how amazing and mystical this is. And now coming to the Atharva Veda, which is a Hindu scripture. It is composed between 2000 and 1400 BCE, and this particular scripture, it focuses heavily on mystical practices like healing, connecting with the divine, and practical knowledge as well. And India's traditional ancient medicine and even early psychotherapy, even Ayurveda, has its origins to the Atharva Veda. Ayurveda, which is now being used by a vast number of individuals for their day-to-day medicinal needs. And this is truly amazing. This is a very unifying approach to our health, treating our body, the mind, and soul as one. There is even a mention of cannabis as being one of the 5 sacred plants, which quote-unquote releases us from anxiety and a source of happiness. And this plant is now used worldwide. It is prescribed by doctors to their patients of anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, and even many forms of mental illnesses. And this blows my mind on how sophisticated were ancient practices, their understanding of health, on how spiritual practices, plant remedies were used together, and it is very smart to use these together, only together the best qualities of nature, and use it for our own wellnesses. And it is phenomenal that despite of centuries of outside forces on India, many invaders, different cultures that came to India, bringing with them their own sets of beliefs, cultures, and traditions, Hinduism stands tall as being one of the religions in the world to constantly safeguard its ancient practices. Up to this date, it has preserved its shamanic roots, its spiritual ancestry and mystical foundations, its connection to nature. And today we see it as a worship to nature, a devotion towards rivers, towards mountains, oceans, ancient trees, stones, the sun. In fact, anything from nature which has given humanity something. It breaks my heart, and it is so sad to see that today people for monetary benefits ignore nature's wellness. Forests are stripped, resulting in displacement of wildlife and whatnot. Rivers are polluted from factories in the name of industrial growth, and mountains are blasted and bombed for construction, roads, and minerals. And even oceans are polluted beyond repair, and people call it progress. And nature, it fights back. It is not powerless. Rivers turn into floods. Droughts lead to humanity's own suffering. Global warming, tsunamis, these are not just bad luck or natural disasters. These are nature's own way of rebalancing itself. The same way nature gave us everything, blessings, food, water, shelter. When we take care of it, it also gives us consequences when we exploit it. And now coming back to shamanism, what exactly is a shaman? What do they actually do? What picture comes to your mind when you hear the word shaman? Now what they do is incredibly diverse and is deeply rooted into community life. They act as the mediator between humans and other dimensions. They are storytellers, fortune tellers, political advisors, singers, and even performed duties of a priest. And one of their most prominent roles was to guide the spirit of newly deceased from earth to the afterlife. And to achieve these states, they are said to have performed unique methods like drumming, chanting mantras, singing, prolonged fasting, days, months, and even years of isolation. Now, what truly blows my mind is that researchers have studied and claimed that through these methods, one can compare or even exceed those experiences which are induced by psychedelics. And these rituals had a very prominent role in tightening community bonds and even allow guidance. Let me show you a few examples of these shamanic practices in India. The Rathva community in Gujarat, they have a shaman who's their spiritual guide. He's known as the Badvo, which communicates with ancestor spirits known as Jeev. The Saora community in Odisha, their shaman is called Kudang, and they act as the connection between the spirit realm. Mostly during illnesses, they identify pain by listening to the body's signal, watching the way rice grains crackle and vanish in the fire. Upon the completion of the ritual, the shaman is said to be in the trance state and guided by spirits, and during that state, they paint, which are known as the Ekon wall paintings. Santhal community, it is one of the largest tribes in India, and their shaman is known as the Oja. They serve as a bridge between their ancestor spirits when a member of the tribe passes away. In their funeral, the Jadu Patuas or the magic painters create the Palaeolithic patas, which are paintings that depict offerings for the deceased person, transition and peace. And in one of their ritual, the painter tends to wait until the final moment to finish the painting, the eyes of the figure in the painting, and when it is completed, it is said that the soul is free, finally able to transition to another world. And like these tribes, there are numerous other ones, like the Orawan tribe, the Khasi tribe, the Toda tribe, and many more. The interesting thing is that these tribes have a shaman, and shamanic rituals shape their tribal identity. But there's one more thing common between all these tribes, which is that they consider nature as sacred. Forests, oceans, rivers, mountains, trees, stones, they are not seen as mere natural objects, but as living entities inhabited by spirits. And most of these rituals are performed outdoors in a natural environment. They truly emphasize the importance of relationship with nature. They have a very reciprocal relationship with nature because for them it is not just a resource, it is a living and sacred entity. In today's world, these ancient shamanic traditions of India, they face many prominent challenges because of rapid urbanizations and industrialization. Highways are made cutting through old villages and tribal areas. Forests are cut where these tribes are living from hundreds of years. There is a commercialization of traditional practices where con artists deceive people for money. And because of these factors, these authentic spiritual traditions are threatened, and many sacred plants and animals and even these communities are endangered. But despite these external pressure, there is still a ray of hope. There is a phenomenal endurance and an ascending movement for the preservation and revival of these tribes and rituals. There is a new interest in indigenous wisdom. Art forms like Rathva's Pithora paintings and the Saura's Ekon and the Santhal's Jadu are indispensable. They aren't just art, they are spiritual tools that facilitate communication with the divine and safeguard ancestral knowledge. And Indian shamanism still holds a deep meaning. It is a way of seeing life where people, nature, and spirit are all connected. It teaches that nature is a part of our family and that the spirit world is close to us in every moment. They remind us of India's rich culture where healing meant caring for the whole person, body, heart, and spirit. Hinduism's strong link to nature, shaped by these shamanic roots, shows how alive and important they still are today. And even in our busy modern world, in our busy lives, they remind us that harmony is possible when we respect the bonds that connect us to each other, the earth and the divine. I would like to know that what do you think about these traditions and tribes? Do let me know in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, please leave a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more deep dives into history, culture, spirituality, philosophy, and stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.